My guest today, he has been, I think this is his third time on the show, and he has run for office. He is an activist with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and more recently, he was pursuing water quality. He was kind of blowing the whistle on the water quality in his neighborhood, and he received a cease and desist from the city. We're going to be talking about all this and going through it, but please welcome back to the show, Rodolfo Cortez. Rodolfo, what's up, buddy?
Hey, good morning, Ron. Great to be here with the news.
Good to see you again. Let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's not get too far ahead. So this has been going on since 2019. And what happened was you shared some information concerning the water quality in Downey, which we're going to go to that specific article in a minute. But let's go to the response first. You got this response from the city itself. Dear Mr. Cortez Barragan, Dr. Rodolfo Cortez Barragan. What's your PhD in, by the way?
Psychology.
Oh, right on. All right. So I'll read this because it is very small print. This office represents the city of Paramount. I previously wrote to you on August 7, 2019. The letter came from the LLP. Okay. The subject of my prior letter was the false and defamatory statements that were publicized in your newscast, and they put news in parentheses, regarding the city's water source and effects of alleged air pollution. The offending video was posted on social media and YouTube. It is my understanding that you failed and refused to post the retraction that was demanded. So you posted some information. They demanded that you retract this because they claimed it was defamatory. Is that correct so far?
Yes, myself and other community advocates, activists went out into the community and we interviewed people about the contamination, the pollution, air and water quality. And we found that people living right next to these factories reported a heck of a lot of health problems.
And Rodolfo, just to jump in here real quick, to make sure we're given the factories you're referring to, that is the Coca-Cola factories, correct?
So the letter you just read from 2019 is actually in the neighboring city next to Downey, Paramount. So that is a different factory that it has to do with aerospace and planes. So this industrial process, which is actually related to the military, creates a lot of harmful pollutants for the local community, for us, for me, and for anyone really. But we have a concentration of these factories in the area. So yeah, that letter is from 2019. But fast forward now to 2021, the same attorney, if you want to go to the other image there on the.
So this is the response from your attorney.
Yes, in 2019, yes.
Yeah, so this is the response in 2019. Now, I do want to talk about this briefly because this is, I always do mention on the show very thoroughly, I am not an attorney. I do not have a law degree. I do not ever offer legal advice. But I am fascinated by the law and especially issues of free speech. Like I am interested in it. And it's interesting to me. And one of the things in this letter that I found very, very fascinating, because when I first read it, I kind of thought, so they're accusing him of defaming a city. Okay. And your attorney pretty much says that's not a thing. So here's your attorney's response. I represent Rodolfo. I've read your letters. And let's see, I take issue with your characterization of his speech, but that dispute is really of no matter. There is no such thing as defaming a city. You are threatening Dr. Cortez Barragan over his speech for a tort that doesn't exist. Dr. Cortez Barragan will not cave at your attempt at censorship and bullying. Please advise the city of Paramount as much. That's a cool attorney letter, quite frankly. That's a pretty cool. But that's interesting how they're just like, this doesn't exist. You can't defame a city. Defamation cases consistently apply towards people. They typically apply towards other people. And by the way, they're also very, very hard to prove. You do not see defamation cases super often because they are very, very hard to prove. because you have. So if you wanted to claim defamation at a city, I mean, they would have to prove that you intentionally spread lies and there was a malicious intent and you had some type of agenda or end game, like you were trying to get people to not rent there or something. I mean, yeah, it just sounds completely ridiculous.
It is totally ridiculous. And even if they were able to prove all of that, it still wouldn't hold up because they're a city. So they can be criticized as much as the public wants to criticize them. As Matthew Struger, my wonderful attorney, lays out here, you can criticize the government as much as you want, and even specific governmental officials. It's ridiculous that they wasted, the people's money on this.
So, just to put a period on this one, so how did that end in 2019? Did you end up taking anything down? Did you end up like what?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. So my attorney sent over that letter, and I didn't hear from them since then. That's one city here in the Southeast LA region. And all of these are very small cities, that are kind of isolated in a way. But the same thing now is happening next door in the city of Downey because, so
let's go to this letter. All right. So now This is more recent. This gets us to 2021. And this is the city of Downey. This office represents the city of Downey regarding false and defamatory statements that were recently publicized by you and others in a posting on your Political Life website and in a video published on your Political Life YouTube channel. The statements were made in both the posting and the YouTube video contain false statements and were republished by Downeytown its unit Facebook page. So what are they claiming is false here?
They go into it and they say that some of the statements that a person that I interviewed made were not entirely accurate. So I dispute that, but they have their own views of it. There are regulations in the state of California related to water. And so, you could very closely parse it, and maybe under some microscope they could argue their case. But what we did in the video that they referenced there, the YouTube video, is we went over their own document. Anyone can go to the Downey City Hall and pull a document that relates to water quality, and all we did is we listed what the numbers were and quoted what it even said. But we also said, that these are harmful. Oftentimes cities don't like to acknowledge that substances or chemicals in their water could be harmful, because obviously that's very concerning for everybody. But the fact is, water throughout the United States is heavily polluted, contaminated, and these small cities that want to preserve some image, that's why they're doing this. They want to control this local narrative about what's truly happening, and the people are not going to stand for that.
Yeah, well, so they're saying that it's kind of actually literally hard for me to read on the screen here, but the March 22nd, 2021 YouTube video introduces this Miss Wilson as a water director for Southeast LA and states that she is giving a tour of Downey's water facilities to help viewer understands the troubling pattern of contamination. The implication is that Ms. Wilson works for a regulatory body that oversees Downey water supply. My investigation shows that this is a false statement that you previously made on another one of your videos. So who is this Letitia Wilson? Like, what does she do?
So she is an elected director to a water board, the Central Basin Municipal Water District, which oversees a large area, including the city of Downey, the city of Paramount. And she agreed, one of the few elected, officials to, agree to do a video to talk about what's going on. And so she, in her capacity, did that. She has certainly a lot of facts available to her. She has expertise in this water area, and she chose to give this interview about these numbers, which are concerning. That the letter, what the document that that we discussed, that they're upset here about, it says that every well in the city has these chemicals. So that's concerning. So anywhere in the city has those chemicals. That's concerning. And so she described that, and they took issue with how she described it. And
what are they claiming as far as who she is? What are they disputing with your description of her? Are they saying that you described her as having more authority than she does, or like what is their case here?
I think that's what they're trying to suggest, but they're not even putting that concretely, because they know that what essentially occurred was that in a little voiceover, I introduced her, and she started speaking for 3 minutes about the water quality. And I described her as giving a tour. So they're taking issue with my characterization of what she was doing as a tour. So she gave me a tour. She said, here's this water structure, here's that water structure. That was a tour to me, for sure. I'm not a expert in water. I'm a community member who wants to know about the water, and she gave me a tour. So they are very upset that I suggest that we say that she's giving a tour, as if we were suggesting that it was like an officially organized tour, which is just, I mean, if they want to sue us, it'll be right there.
So this letter could be summarized as, we are really grasping for straws because we don't want people talking about this stuff. I mean, they're taking issue with how you designated this elected woman and your descriptor there. And they're taking issue with you describing something as a, quote, tour that they're saying is not. I mean, it's not an official tour. There was not a little buggy and cart that rode around and you didn't get a souvenir at the end. Not a tour. I mean, this is, and then they're using those very nitpicky, grasping for straws claims to claim defamation, which, again, not a lawyer, but that sounds pretty ridiculous. And I think your lawyer would agree with it, because here's a letter they sent in response on April 12th, 2021. Dear Ms. Scarborough, your letter, blah, blah, blah. We've been through this before and recently. And then they go to go on to describe why there's no defamation going on here. And they end it with, why are you sending him a second 1,800-word letter threatening suit over a tort doesn't exist? Knock it off. So a little more just kind of, I mean, not impolite, but a little more, I guess, thorough in cut it out.
Right.
Just a little more blunt and just kind of laying the hammer down. So here is what y'all actually shared. Here is the website itself. Downey City memo proves PFAS contamination. So here is the actual document that you shared. And again, this is a City of Downey document. And this lists the amount of chemicals found in the water. So you're listing a city document and you're expressing concern over the results, which is something any person can do.
Yes.
It's like that's as, I mean, that is as just standard as saying Rodolfo woke up this morning, had a cup of coffee and a bowl of cereal. And they're saying,
yes.
Orange juice, fresh squeezed, I hope.
It is.
You're not a coffee guy?
I'm not.
I don't know if I can trust you anymore. That's bizarre, Rodolfo. Why would you do that?
I know.
Now, are you open to a highly caffeinated Ron tea that might be coming up in the future?
Totally, I am.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay. Seriously, are you a tea guy though? Are you a tea guy?
I prefer tea. Rarely do I do the coffee, but yes.
I mean, and I mean, of course, I'm not serious. I have a lot of friends who are not coffee, not a lot, but I do know a couple people who are not coffee people. Graham Elwood, I know you know who Graham is. Him and I go on the road together. He's not a coffee guy, whereas I should probably not be allowed in public or to speak in general until I've had at least 2 cups. So we are quite opposites in that regard. and I don't understand how anyone cannot. I get it. It's a drug. I get it that I'm addicted. And I get it that really it just, I actually saw like a report at one point in time that where they were saying that coffee, it just makes you, it tricks you into not thinking you're actually tired. That's why you eventually crash, is because, so I get it, but still, how do you, I can't wake up without it. I just can't. I don't understand how anyone can. I mean, that's
try it for a few weeks, and you might be surprised after a few weeks. Try it straight, you know.
I'm not gonna make it through that through weeks, or I mean, what's it gonna cost me, Rodolfo? Like what's it gonna? Hey, Rodolfo, I made it through the few weeks. I'm divorced now. Like, you know, like,
Yes.
anyway, but all right. So getting back to this, and you know, we'll discuss your non-coffeeness later. But so this is all you did.
Yeah.
And they're trying to, I mean, this is the chart right here. Well, so are they trying to make the claim that there's nothing unacceptable about these numbers? Which again, even if they were, they still have no case against you because you're expressing an opinion. I mean, they could say, well, there's nothing wrong with these numbers. You could say, yeah, I think there is. They can't sue you for that. They can disagree with you. They can publish other findings to the contrary. They can give an analysis that goes against yours and combats it. Nothing's stopping them from doing that. Freedom of speech, go for it. But they can't sue you for defamation. That'd be like, anyway.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, they technically could. They haven't to this point. They attempted to, actually. They attempted to, like the week after that letter was sent, and we refused to put down. But we actually came together through a protest. A lot of people descended onto the city hall, and their action that we are not sure that they were this was the lawsuit they were initiating, but they called an emergency session for it. So we strongly suspect that it was, and so thankfully we defeated it through a protest. Maybe they'll bring it back. I mean, there's plenty more that we're going to say about the water. We're not going to stop, and any other issue that's relevant to the public. That we're just community activists and journalists cooperating on this project. So how dare the city go after us for talking about the water?
Well, and when you say that they can do that, I mean, really, what you mean by that is like, yeah, they can because they have all this money and all this power. In the eyes of the law, it is, a couple steps beyond bogus, but because they do have this money and power, they can try. But I mean, it'd be a hell of a, I mean, it'd be a chilling thing if this actually went anywhere.
Yes, it would be. I mean, I wouldn't count so much on the city doing it. Perhaps, I mean, you briefly mentioned, Coca-Cola. So that's also in the article. What's one of the notable things about the city of Downey is it has the largest Coca-Cola bottling facility in the entire, Southwest United States. So Downey's water is Dasani and many other beverages from Coca-Cola. So it's concerning that if the water here is contaminated with these chemicals and high levels of these chemicals, well, is Coca-Cola doing anything about it? I would wager probably not. So that's concerning.
Well, no. In fairness, they might be making it worse. That's something, right?
Exactly. Yes, I mean these corporations, right? I mean they're gonna cut whatever corners, and this is gonna be an issue going forward. How do we clean up the water throughout the United States from these harmful chemicals that other companies put into the water? So it's going to be an evolving struggle. If they sue, I think they won't be pleased with the results.
So let's get into the chemical itself. And I know you talk about this in the article more extensively, but to summarize it for us now, like what is the situation with this chemical? Like, what is it? Why is it dangerous? What does it do? And what is kind of the amount that document reveals is in the water supply?
Sure. So here we're talking about PFAS, PFAS. So those are chemicals. Some people call them contaminants, pollutants. They're harmful for human health. So they were introduced starting in the 30s, 40s, 50s by these mega companies, by DuPont, by 3M. A lot of the viewers have probably seen Dark Waters, a great movie from a few years back. So that's what this is about. So it's a chemical that repels water. So oftentimes, they use it for firefighting foam. They use it in jackets. Waterproof clothing has these PFAS chemical substances. So it's completely man-made, and it's extraordinarily harmful to human health, to animal health, more generally speaking. Actually, just a few days before we released, our report on our local situation with PFAS, Erin Brockovich, right, another very famous environmentalist, she came out with a report in The Guardian that we actually link in the article in case you want to pull it up. But she talks in very dire terms about this, and many other scientists, and it's where it says sperm quality.
Oh, okay.
Yes, go up.
I think up. Yeah. I remember.
Right under bold is Downey's water contaminated.
Yeah. So PFAS are a class of pollutants harmful to health, notably to sperm quality. All right. So you're saying click that?
Click that.
Okay. So this is an Erin Brockovich article. Let me go ahead and put it back in the browser I'm sharing here. Plummeting sperm counts, shrinking penis. Oh, I remember seeing this just in general.
Yeah.
Somebody sent this to me. That toxic chemicals threaten humanity and shrinking penises, which because I remember when I first saw the study, I wasn't sure who did it, and the joke I made when I was covering it in real time, because I covered it on a patron stream, and during my patron stream, the patrons just send me stuff, and I just kind of just respond to it in real time. And so I was just like, did a guy do this study or did a woman? Because it'd be interesting if some, like, hey, honey, I noticed you're a little, I don't know what's going on down there. It's like, well, this is science. It's not me. I'm going to prove it. But anyway, the end of humankind, it may be coming sooner than we think, thanks to hormone disrupting chemicals that are decimating fertility at an alarming rate around the globe. And one of the PFAS is responsible for this. And as your article mentions, and as this piece mentioned, it's known as a forever chemical. Why is something a forever chemical? I mean, it's not because that's not a good thing. It's called a forever chemical because they don't break down in the environment or, wait for it, the human body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They build up. They build up in the bloodstream over time. They don't leave the body as they should. And I think my camera's frozen again, right?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I was noticing that.
Yeah, and this time I'm closing my eyes, right? So.
No, you're actually not. Every time it's been. I mean, you look like you're concentrating. Every freeze frame has actually been a pretty pretty solid freeze frame. I mean, there's way worse. Like as far like you're not making a face, your eyes aren't closed. You look like you're concentrating.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look like you're getting ready to defend a dissertation, or you look like you're hearing somebody try to defend theirs. Like it looks like I'm just like, listen, Dr. Cortez, Freud. Here's my rebuttal to him, and you're not really all that impressed. You're like, I don't think we're gonna offer this dude tenure. That's kind of what your expression's saying a little bit.
I see. Well, okay, that's all right. I'll just leave it be.
We'll just do the audio. This is just Rodolfo's headshot. And we just got him audio. Which, again, it's a good shot. It's a good shot. Both times it's been a solid shot. But okay, so that's what this chemical is. It's a dangerous chemical. So a significant presence of it is not good. And it will shrink penis size and volume of the testes. Now, you'd think that would be enough to even get the right on board with doing something about this, right?
Yeah, you'd think. Unfortunately, people don't want to acknowledge the problems that are right in front of them. So in this case, it's a lot of industrial sources. Issues of claim needs for jobs, all that kind of stuff, and of course the opposition from these companies don't want to acknowledge what they've done. Because of course then the people would want them to truly pay for it, for what the damage, which is inconceivable. These are chemicals we can't really see, obviously, but they are threatening our lives every day. There's a lot of evidence out there for this, and it's really just ridiculous that any local or larger government would attempt to go after the citizens, right, for talking about something that's so important for everybody.
Well, and especially since you're publishing publicly available documents. I mean, that's the other thing, because there's so many people, and I actually, when I had Jordan Sheridan from Status Quo on my show, we really talked about this extensively too. Which was this? Has Status Quo covered your story yet? Because this is right up their alley.
I don't think they have. No.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, you know Tina, right? Tina
Yes.
Desiree.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys got to get in touch, because
No.
this is right up their alley. I mean, they cover a lot of water stuff, and well, it's one of those things that a lot of people kind of space on, myself included. I mean, I'm guilty of this, where it's like, yeah, you can look at the water quality anywhere. It's publicly available. People just don't talk about it. And usually the findings aren't going to make you super happy. But they are all out there. So all you did was publish available documents, but actually go a step further and analyze them and say, hey, there's a presence of this chemical at an alarming amount, and this chemical's really freaking bad. Here's what it is. That's all you did. And they're trying to make a defamation case out of that, which, again, not a lawyer, but that's freaking remarkable.
Yeah, and what really strikes me is I wonder how many other people get targeted, not just by this, say, city council, by any small city council, when people may not have the resources or know about, how to fight this. And essentially, of course, right, the solution is to just keep on talking about whatever public document you want. So it's very concerning to me. I know for a fact that there have been other victims of these cities' attacks against free speech, and it has led to chilled effects. And we as activists just, I think, have to keep on going. And we, thankfully now everyone can go to Matthew Struger's, my attorney's Twitter, and they can read all about this. And you can see how there's so many attorneys that gave their own thoughts below his tweet. So this is what really we should be doing, right? Educating ourselves on our rights as they exist, instead of allowing the government to trample on them.
So for the rest of this, let's kind of just get away from the lawsuit itself for a minute, and let's talk solutions for this. You are going up against Coca-Cola. You are going up against, now in this case, a city, which why wouldn't a city want clean water for its residents? I mean, everybody in the city, whether they're the mayor or the poorest resident, they use the water. So what is kind of the fix for all this, and how can acting local be a fix for this, or is it?
Whew, great questions, Ron. So, one thing obviously we have to get right is that we have to acknowledge that this is a deep problem, and even though we can't see it, we have to keep pressuring all our officials to do more on it, because it is the kind of thing that shortens our life, probably, according to some information, even EPA information, by 10, 15 years. So, especially, this is everywhere, right? The water goes up and down the entire the world. But in heavily industrialized communities, this is probably an especially large problem. So it's vital that everyone keeps talking about it. So solutions, that's going to have to come in the form of technologies that the government's just going to have to acknowledge that, of course, it can pay for them. There's no shortage of dollars to be created in order to there is promising technology to filters to clean them to use, but oftentimes so actually in a neighboring community, I'll give you an example. In a neighboring community of Pico Rivera, they did a much better job at talking about PFAS. The city right next to Downey, so they acknowledge their PFAS problem, and they are installing filtration systems, especially in places like schools, hospitals. But it took them a while, and that was partly because there was no funding. So it's ridiculous that there's no funding. The funding needs to come from any source, but especially the federal government, and we need a people's government to be able to combat this problem, which was entirely created by corporations that are repeatedly propped up by the government. So we need a dramatic intervention from the people there, because it truly is, as Erin Brockovich has in her article, it's that bad. We can't see it right now, but we can see. We can't see the dramatic effects that are predicted, but it's sort of like with COVID. A lot of very smart people predicted, not just people like Bill Gates. A lot of people in that entire field of research were expecting a disaster like COVID to hit, and they were right. And the reason, and since they expected, they were able to prepare for it, right? So that's why the vaccines came out as quickly as they did. That was a lot of decades of research went into being ready for the moment when something like COVID would hit. So in the same way, there's a lot of very smart people acknowledging this problem, and of course we have a government that's bought and paid for by the corporations that usually just give lip service to this without providing any actual solutions. So it's going to take a people struggle. So thank you to everyone who's involved in this.
How does that people struggle start?
Well, hopefully, whether you are an isolated individual in a community where maybe there's not a lot of activity as far as activism goes, if you're that individual, you should take Mr. Matthew Struger's, the attorney's letter, and go demand all the public documents you need and want, and try to educate your community on them. And the more you talk with people in your community, I think the easier it gets. I've been in 2019. I didn't quite know how to combat the city attorney that went after me. But now with quite a bit of learning about what can be said at City Hall and what cannot be said, or there's really very little that can't be said. So, and the move, they try to do this again, right? They try to silence journalists or the people that we interviewed, and we were able to fight back. How did we fight back? By building relationships with each other, by talking about these issues, by continuing to certainly go to the city councils where all of this gets adjudicated and gets a hearing, at least from the public, even if the public officials don't actually care to listen or change their behavior. So once it takes a village, it takes a while to build those relationships with people, but once you do, you can really move mountains, and then hopefully that translates into political action. So of course, you mentioned earlier about the Party for Socialism and Liberation. So for example, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, stands for a complete overhaul of this system. Because what is it that gave us these chemicals? Well, yes, it was particular corporations, but those corporations were there because of this system of capitalism, where they wanted to reap up a profit and and deliver a product that we didn't actually need, but they created an artificial need for it. Like the Teflon, right? So PFAS, that's one of its famous uses in Teflon, where the non-stickware pans. So they created that need. Maybe people, it creates a convenience for people, but now we know with decades of experience that is leading us to our deaths. And obviously, that's not something that we that we should continue to stand for. So the way that we're going to need to do that is through a coordinated people's movement that can get it done. So yes, so of course, I already mentioned, so socialism. Under socialism, the goal is for the government to provide for the people's needs. So people need, clean water. There's cleaner sources of water than the groundwater that is heavily polluted with PFAS, but yet the governments don't want to deliver it for various reasons. They claim cost, etc. Under a socialist government, the cost would be kind of irrelevant because we would use the people's the resources of the earth to be sustainable, to create a sustainable system for the population, for the diversity of plants and animals. So it's really, as I see it, that's really the only way that we're going to be able to certainly deal with the PFAS issue and just kind of can thrive, as a kind of a species, because we need systemic changes. So that's what what is offered through, like you mentioned, the party program for the Party for Socialism and Liberation. It's just very important, to get out the message, and the message is clear. Capitalism has brought our system to its knees. We're seeing it with COVID. We need a totally new system, and that's why certainly the Party for Socialism and Liberation exists. So it's very important to get involved and just continue speaking up. The more you speak up, just the more other people speak up. That's what I've noticed in my local community, and I think that's what we need. That's beautiful for the people to speak out about these injustices and what's harming us in our environment. So, long answer, Ron, but
no, I appreciate it, and I got one more question, and I got two short ones, and this first one goes backwards a little bit, but as you were describing PFAS and as we're seeing what it does, I guess, do you know, like, how the hell would something like that get into a water supply in the first place?
Yeah. So there's different sources for it. So the first now very notable studies of PFAS came from DuPont's own studies, right? So they studied their own workers' health results when they were exposed to PFAS at the production factories of Teflon, the non-stick cookware. And since then, since the introduction of Teflon, there's been a whole lot of other products that have been introduced to repel water. Well, it turns out that they're repelling water to such an extent that they're the forever chemicals.
And they're getting into the supply.
Exactly. They get into the supply, and in both in everyday uses like nonstick materials, as well as firefighting foam, although there's been a lot of newer regulations against that. So a lot of fire departments are no longer using that, certainly in the United States, although in many other parts of the world, they're still using the PFAS laced firefighting foam. And so obviously that's a lot of, there's a lot of PFAS there. So oftentimes you get a lot of PFAS near areas where you say there's an airfield, or there was near military installations, where there's a lot of need for or created need for PFAS chemicals.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your